Hey everybody, this is Aaron Holloway again. Today, we're going to be doing something particularly interesting. So, I plan on seeing if I can outright the chat GBT bot. It's been kind of a big deal lately for a lot of authors. A lot of people have been pretty concerned because, AI essentially can write scenes now. It can write creatively, in essence. But here's the thing. I've played around with it. As you can see, I have a space battle scenario, fantasy battle, defense of a city scenario. I've already messed around with a few scenes. And I haven't really found it to be that useful, except in scene structure. In helping with scene structure. Or in helping with scene scope. Those two have been pretty useful. But that entails me taking the scene basically inputting what I want the scene to be, taking the scene out of the bot, and editing it heavily. That would be my dog. Sorry about that. And then editing it heavily in a Word doc to be something completely new. The structure of the scene has proven useful a couple of times, but it's not really beyond that. It's really not. What's the term? My experience so far is that it hasn't been very high quality. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if I can outright this. Now, I've only been a published author for about 3 years now. I've been writing since I was in my teens, but I've been a published author for only about 3-ish years now. My publisher, Athon, published my first novel earlier this year, and then in a traditional way, and then about 3 years ago, I started my Ethria series. So, I would be considered like a journeyman, an amateur, relatively speaking, in this field. Somebody who has some skill, but is not by any means like a Brandon Sanderson, somebody like that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to see if the chatbot can do 3 things. 1, if it can create better, cleaner, more easily read prose than me. And see if 2, if it can, what's the term? So 1, we're going to see if the bot can create cleaner, more easily read prose than I can. And 2, we're going to see if it can write to spec and how closely to spec it can write. We're also going to add a third option here, which is economy of words, which is something I think that the chatbot does a decent job of. That's a weakness of mine, is I tend to get too verbose when I'm trying to write something. I tend to write something that lasts for 4 pages rather than 2, so to speak. Whereas the chatbot is pretty good at keeping it to about 1.5 pages. If it goes beyond that, it starts getting really messy. You'll hear my family in the background. I'm recording this the day after Christmas, so I apologize if we're getting a little bit of background noise. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to create write me a scene. Now, I write lit RPG typically, or progression fantasy, which is things like Trapped in a Game system, things like Sword Art Online be a good example of this. Things like that. The Ethria series was Portal Fantasy, and the one I'm working currently on is a traditional fantasy with lit RPG elements, or game lit elements. The next thing I'm going to be working on is a more loose form progression fantasy. So why don't we start with a fantasy scene. Let's keep it simple. An apprentice learning from a master, sitting at the feet of a master, and learning how to use magic. All right, so let's go. Write me a scene where a young wizard apprentice sitting at the feet of a master wizard. Cast a weak spell. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see what it does. See what it comes up with. Now, I'm not actually going to read this until later. We're going to come back to this in a moment. Let me create a little Word document here. Open a document. There we go. And we are going to write that same scene. So let me just copy paste from over here. There. This is going to be my notes section. Oh. Those are my dogs. Sorry about them. Was a spell of darkness. All right. It's not really sitting in front of her feet, but I think it captures kind of the essence here. All right. Scene. This is the scene I wrote. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to compare. Master Kaldash of the Southern Wizard's Tower sat across from his young apprentice and smiled. Internally, he felt like screaming to the gods in frustration. The girl couldn't learn, or perhaps wouldn't learn. No, she wouldn't waste his time. Not after the money her family had paid. Not after the sacrifices they had made for her. Besides, if the maids in the tower were to be believed, she was a hard worker, willing to take on tasks that his other apprentices had refused to do until he had been personally forced to intervene and ensure their compliance. Here, try this. He reached over and gently took the pen she was writing with to inscribe the spell on the scroll. He took the pen and poured nearly half his daily magical reserves down the pen and into the ink. Perhaps the problem was simply her lack of affinity with light magic. Let's capitalize that because other types of magic, or scroll crafting. Such things were known to be hurdles for many young wizards, witches, and even the occasional educated sorcerer. This would help her get past that hurdle, as his mana was very well tuned to light. There, now give it a try. I want to see something. Thank you, master, she whispered, and she took the pen from him. This time, the scroll lit up. That should be right. Like the city at night. I thought that might be the case. What is the problem, master? The spell worked, didn't it? Yes, my dear. This just means I will be teaching you the fundamentals, which I am more than happy to do. But then I will have to send you to one of the academies, so you can receive proper specialist training in whatever magic type you are most attuned to. Attuned? She asked, as she sat back in her chair, visibly frustrated. What does that mean? You know, I am a light mage. It is my specialty. Speciality. That doesn't seem right. I'll figure that out later. She replied, Good. Well, no, she nodded. Good. Well, I didn't choose that specialty. It was chosen for me by the gods, or fate, or whatever it is that chooses what us gifted can do from birth. But my uncle can do all kinds of magic, she protested, stroking her long red hair nervously. Yes, this I know. He was my apprentice, after all, and that is the truth for many gifted. They are able to use magic with many different kinds. They are able to use magic of many different kinds. But there are some like us, he touched her shoulder and then his chest, who are more limited in scope, but grander in depth. I don't understand. I know. For now, let us try a different spell. How about... He thought about it for a long moment before smirking, wanting to test something else. How about the Drain Mana spell? It wasn't necromantic. Not necessarily, though plenty of foolish people, including many gifted, believe so. No, Drain Mana was a spell of darkness. After a moment, she sighed, picked up the pen, and got back to work with a fresh mana-infused inkwell. As soon as the pen lifted from the symbol on the page, it glowed a deep purple light. Kaldish smiled from ear to ear. Perhaps he could teach her a thing or two after all. All right, so let's compare this. My purpose here was to show that they had a decent relationship, show he was actually he actually knew what he was talking about, show competency, set up the relationship of master and apprentice, set up his credentials, and give them a little bit of personal interaction. We got to see kind of what she physically looks like a little bit, as well as some of his characterization as being kind of an older wizard. You know, he taught her uncle, right? So he's taught multiple generations. So let's take a look here at what the AI came up with. The young wizard apprentice sat at the feet of the master wizard, his eyes glued to the older man's face as he listened intently to the instructions being given. The master wizard held a small crystal in his hand, and as he spoke, he moved it slowly back and forth, allowing the light to catch the facets and send sparks of color dancing across the room. Now, my young apprentice, the master wizard said, his voice gentle and kind, I want you to watch closely as I demonstrate this weak spell. Pay attention to the words I say and the movements I make, as these are crucial to the success of the spell. The apprentice nodded eagerly, his heart racing with excitement at the prospect of learning magic. The master wizard began to recite the incantation, his voice low and steady as he spoke the ancient words. As he spoke, he waved the crystal slowly through the air, drawing a glowing trail behind it. The apprentice watched it in awe as the master wizard completed the incantation, and a small spark of light appeared at the tip of the crystal. It grew and grew until it burst into a shower of sparks that rained down upon the room. The apprentice clapped excitedly, his eyes shining with pride and excitement. "That was amazing, master," he exclaimed. The master wizard chuckled and patted the apprentice on the head. "You see, my dear boy, even the weakest of spells can be powerful when wielded by skill and precision. Now, it is your turn to try." The apprentice eagerly took the crystal from the master wizard and, following his instructions, began to recite the incantation and wave the crystal through the air. It took a few tries, but eventually a small spark of light appeared at the tip of the crystal, just like the master's. The apprentice beamed with pride, and he completed the spell. And the master wizard nodded approvingly. "Well done, my boy. You have a natural talent for magic. With practice and dedication, you will become a skilled wizard in no time." The apprentice smiled and thanked the master wizard, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over him. He knew he had a long way to go, but he was determined to become the best wizard he could be, with the help of his wise and patient mentor. Alright, so let's just take this. Using the same prompt, these are the things that a human, itchy nose, and let's go insert page break, and we will do that. Okay, we actually got about the same in terms of, actually no, this is shorter, I believe. Yep, his is a little shorter than mine, or his. The bot's writing is a little bit shorter than mine. It does do a couple of important things. The things I can notice it does is it establishes these two characters, the apprentice and the master. It gives us the idea that the apprentice is really eager to learn, and the master is, he likes his apprentice. Amazing master shows us a little bit about how magic works, but not a ton. Doesn't give us a ton of information here. Just it's essentially crystal based and magic based, and it's a little bit of a, how do I put it, a soft magic system. Other than that, we know that crystals are involved. Just personally, looking at this, I don't think the prose is as strong. Mine is written in the same third person, right? Master Kaldish of the Southern Wizard's Tower sat across from his young apprentice and smiled. The young wizard apprentice sat at the feet of the master wizard. It's almost like it took the prompt and made it the first line, almost, and then ad-libbed from there. We don't get names. We don't get any world building except for the little bit with the magic, and that's about it. We get a little bit of characterization. Here we get a lot of characterization, or maybe not a ton, but we get enough. We get a taste of what these two characters are like. She's a young apprentice, a little bit frustrated, doesn't know a lot yet, is frustrated with the process, is a hard worker. From or at least the master thinks she is. We get the master's name, Kaldish. I don't think we get her name. We don't. I don't think I gave her a name yet. Maybe Sarah or something. I don't know. Well, we would figure that out later. So mine's a little longer, but it provides us a lot more of that world building aspect, which is really important. Particularly if you're trying to write something tight and something that is that you don't have overly, so that you're not overly verbose, which is a problem I have sometimes. You want it to be tight, you want it to be short and sweet. I would probably end this. This is the ending of the scene. I'd end this, new scene, maybe either switch to a B plot, switch to maybe her cooking, or doing something else. Maybe we get her perspective. Or maybe we switch to him as he's trying to get her to learn some other spell, or learn maybe chemistry or something like that. We would, essentially, this progresses to the next scene, and it comes to a close. This doesn't really do that. This feels like almost the ending of a short story. The apprentice smiled and thanked the master wizard, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over him. He knew that he had a long way to go, but he was determined to become the best wizard he could be, with the help of his wise and patient mentor. This is like a children's book. It's like the ending of a children's book. Like if you were to close a children's book and didn't remember any of the characters' names, just kind of knew what happened. There you go. Maybe each one of these paragraphs would be a different page. Maybe like something like that. And this would be like my child's first paragraph book or something. Very tropey as well. It does use tropes. The one thing about so that's actually a strength, I would say, is that it leans heavily into tropes so that people know what's going on, right? It uses master, it uses apprentice, like I do, but at the same time it's still using those and knows to use those. There's an incantation. There's a crystal ball. There's these other things going on. And so it's leaning heavily into those tropes. That's what I can say positive about it. Negatively, I would say if I was trying to use this to write a scene, actually seriously write a scene, I'd have to rewrite entire portion of this. I'd have to add names in. I'd have to give this treatment. And I will do that at some point. Not today. So yeah, in all, me using it in an inexpert way with a very simple prompt, because that is a very simple prompt. I know people give these things very complex prompts sometimes. But using a very simple prompt, which is just write me a scene where a young wizard apprentice is sitting at the feet of a master wizard and learning how to cast a weak spell. That's a very simple thing. Another issue that this has is there's no sense of place. This is the white room syndrome, where you don't know where they are. Here, he's clearly in a tower, his home, right? And he has maids, and he has people to do things for him. He's a very successful wizard. He might even be a noble. We don't know yet. But Kaldash, he lives there. It feels a lot more lived in. There's nothing like that in this. This is just very, very simplistic. This is pre-YA. Like, this is juvenile writing. Which, there's nothing wrong with juvenile writing. Juvenile writing has its place, absolutely. But I would even on a juvenile, if I were writing this for a juvenile book, or writing this for a children's book, I'd want names. I'd want a sense of place. Like there's a tower, high in the master wizard's tower. The wizard Kaldish stood, or the wizard Kaldish taught his apprentice, and then you would see like a picture of them doing that, right? And the master wizard lecturing says, "Now, my young apprentice, I want you to watch closely as I demonstrate this spell." And I would remove weak, because you wouldn't need weak. Hi, everybody. This is Aaron from recording. It looks like my outro got deleted or corrupted or something. For some reason, my final thoughts didn't come through. So I'm going to give them here just really briefly. In short, using chatbot seems like probably a really good tool to help you get story structure, maybe some ideas about how to start a scene or how to end a scene. So far, it seems like it would be a really good tool in general to help authors. It seems like augmentative AI rather than replacement AI. And being replaced is what a lot of people have been worried about. I don't think us authors have anything to worry about, at least not for several more years, if that. And even then, if we learn this tool, just like artists, who are the ones that are kind of freaking out on their end as well, if we learn to use this tool, it will allow us to do greater, essentially larger and greater and more content very quickly, and to a higher skill degree, to a higher degree in general, higher quality, essentially. Eventually, once it reaches that point. I just think that a lot of people, particularly artists and authors, are freaking out over nothing. This will just be another tool in our toolbox. That's one of the things in general. This is just my general thoughts about AI. The fact that the most powerful one right now is open AI, I think is the thing that saves us, so to speak. I think Elon Musk and the people he supported behind this project, the open AI, and all the things that come with it, I think they're doing this the right way. I have a sneaking suspicion that certain large corporations have been using these types of AI for a long time. It's why writing quality has gone down in Hollywood, at least one of the reasons. It's why fully computer-generated rather than hand-drawn animation has become more streamlined or more pretty much completely dominant in the industry. And those few that do hand-drawn animations are so beloved. It's because they're done with love to a quality that is just unheard of in the industry today. And so I think, in general, traditional art and traditional writing done the old way, by hand or only using AI assist, that's going to become a commodity. Whereas AI-generated stuff is going to become kind of the regular everyday stuff people see eventually, and the skills of an actual artist and the ability to directly copyright stuff that you've worked on is going to become a commodity. It's going to become artisanal, so to speak. Though butcher shops aren't around much anymore, those places where they do exist, traditionally trained butchers make a ton of money. Their prices are much higher. Their clientele is of a greater quality. And though most people eat they get most of their meat from mass market stuff. If you get it from a butcher and you get the prime cut and Wagyu and all those other things, that's considered a luxury item. That's what's going to happen with AI art and traditionally written novels, I think. Yeah. So those are my final thoughts in general. Yeah, this is going to be an augmentative tech for a long time, probably for the next 5 to 10 years. And then after that point, once it gets really, really good and it starts really accelerating, particularly the publicly available versions of it, you're going to see so much content being put out. It's going to be quality. It's not going to be so much that you can put out quality or that you can put out content, as much as it is that you can put out content that is quality and that you can get on the radar of people who are aggregating data. I once heard a friend of mine say that we're out of the information age. There's so much information out there. You can pretty much find the information you want wherever you want and make it say whatever you want. We're out of that era, right? Where that was new. That's the status quo now. We're in, and that includes for art and writing and all that stuff. There's so much content out there, even now, and it's only going to accelerate with AI and things, that it's going to be the people who can aggregate that data and catalog it and appropriately place it, and to ensure quality. It's going to be those places that essentially provide gatekeeping. We're in the authentication age, essentially. We're in the aggregation age of data. And so I think for authors and artists getting in with a successful, what do you call it, publishing house, or starting an artist collaborative, or building a platform, are going to be extremely important. And a platform you control entirely. Because that will allow you, sorry, my camera's shaking a bit. That will allow you to directly communicate with your audience without having to pay the big players, without having to pay YouTube, without having to pay Audible, without having to pay all these others. And that will allow you to directly sell your content. And you can ensure to your audience that you have quality content, rather than the dross that's going to be put out. I love KU, but as an example, the dross that's put out on KU. A lot of authors will use KU for a long time. Well, that's probably a topic for another video. But yeah, those are my final thoughts. Really, AI is going to be a help. It's also going to be a bit of a hindrance. We're going to need to adapt, and adapting is going to look a lot like aggregating data, ensuring quality, and building a reliable platform for yourself, a reliable independent platform. Something akin to, say, what Nick Cole and Jason Onspach have done with their, they have two platforms they built, one for fantasy, one for science fiction stuff. Galaxy's Edge and Forgotten Ruin, and their publishing house for that. They've built some very interesting platforms, and it's going to be very important going forward for independent authors, and for even if you use small and traditional presses, for you to have your own platform. I personally am looking at building my own website. Yeah, so that's going to be something that I'm going to be looking into soon. If you haven't yet, start looking into it, because that's going to be the big thing. Also, getting involved in the community, making sure that you can trade, do email swaps, but more, what that's probably going to look like is going to change in the next few years. It's probably going to look like cross promotion, writing something with a co-writer, stuff like that. That's what's going to probably look more like cross promotion going forward, is my guess. This is all me guessing, by the way. There's a lot of changes coming down the pipeline, and we're going to have to be adaptable. So, yeah, with that, fellow writers, readers, and lunatics, thank you. Have a great night or day or whatever, whenever you watch this video. See you later. Bye.